Dearest shadow, I live with a numberless.
Well, hello, darlings. It's good to see you. It's nearly Billie Holiday's Saints' Day, so I thought I'd light a candle for her and pour some tea for you. Of ever returning you. I am very happy to welcome all of you this evening and to say thank you to my operator, who will now hand me a lighter from yonder. It's next to the pink light. Sunday. It is not a gloomy Sunday. It is a fabulous Monday. So I thought, bring Billie into the room. April 7th, her Saint's Day. Oh, transcendent Saint Billie, keep watch over the outcast and the prodigal daughter. You bore poverty and sorrow, injury and indignity. Amplify our laments that our loss and longing may be heard. Make us fierce in our frailty that we may transform bitterness to blues. Help us claim our reprobate natures to fortify us against life's inevitable sufferings and completely uncalled for sufferings. We ask, O Lady Day, for strength and will to sing until the day everything happens for the best. Inveniam viam aut faciem. Amen. Welcome, darlings. I hope you find something beautiful to listen to on April 7th, and perhaps even find some music for your own blues. Look, it's the book we're reading. My dreams never haunted you. All right, I got it. I'm sure I got it. Okay. Okay. Sunday. Nailed it. All right, darlings. Oh, you feel so far away again. Why don't you come on closer? That's better. Thank you for being here. It's such a treat, always. I'm going to say thank you to my operator for the evening, Onsa. She has a show on Wednesday nights. It's a tarot class, so you can get your reading read and you can learn about the tarot as well. It's extremely informative, and I work as her operator for that, so turnabout is fair play. It's a good way of considering this month about how we like to support our chosen family and how we like to support each other. So I'm going to get into the chats real quick before we move. Who have we got? Hello, Johnny O Twitch. Hello, Screamin' Dragon. Hello, Lady Loki. Hello, Reverend Tommy. Hi, Bill. Who else have we got? All right. Oh, I love seeing all of you. It's a little warm though. It's, you know, I'm gonna show a little bit of leg if you don't mind. It's just the weather is changing and my body is very confused. Have you all got something beautiful to drink? This evening it's black tea with a bit of cocoa nibs in it. So it gives it this like luscious fattiness as if it's got milk in it, and it doesn't require any sugar. So I highly recommend it. You can buy cocoa nibs at like a brewer's supply store. And remember to shop local. Don't give Bezos any more money. How has your week been? I had a lovely week, full of adventure and connection and paid work and I was a stilt walker at an Easter celebration at a historic home. And I was terrifying. I didn't realize it until I saw photos later, but I was absolutely terrifying. So I'm not surprised that there were so many children who were running away from me. But that's fine. It's really better if the children stay further away from me. So tell us how your week has been. I got to travel to Wilmington, Delaware, and their art museum in order to see an amazing painting by Rossetti, who is one of the founders of the Pre-Raphaelite movement. And it was this glorious, like almost life-size, a little bit more than life-size painting of the goddess Mnemosyne. She is the Greek embodiment of memory, and she's the mother of the muses, so, or the graces as they might be known. So poetry, music, comedy, theater, those were all considered to be ruled by these 9 women, and their mother is memory. She lives in the kingdom of Hypnos in the underworld, along with her sister, Lethe, who is the personification of forgetfulness and oblivion. Now, I'm saying all of this because I'm in the middle of developing a project about her and about memory and about the underworld and the kingdom of Hypnos. So far, it's really fascinating, but also I love the idea that Hypnos as a god is actually like the opposite of Jupiter, because sleep rules 60% of our lives as human beings. And so Hypnos was considered this benevolent ruler who took care of people, and he didn't have any machinations against humans. He let them rest, and he gave them respite from lives that were short and brutal. So I really love the idea of beginning to explore that landscape and all of the creatures that live in his kingdom, the cave that has absolutely no light. And what would a place like that smell like, with poppies and mugwort and valerian and kava growing around it? And then I really want to dive deeper into the lore about Mnemosyne and Lethe, and perhaps build this kind of tension between them. Because when you go to the underworld in this Greek tradition, you are dipped into the waters of oblivion and you forget the life that you had and who you were. But you could also be dipped into the waters of Mnemosyne, and you would remember all of the past lives that you've ever had. You would remember everything. And the story was that people would be dipped into that, and they would go into a torpor of just absolute paralytic fear and awe. And then the other creatures of the land and Mnemosyne's servants would take care of you. The nymphs would take care of you until you recovered. But just imagine the idea that if you really knew everything, if you remembered every part of your life or past lives, the horror and the joy, that it would push you into a catatonic state, and others would have to care for you until you recovered from it. And then you could go on with this life that you were leading. It didn't kill you, it didn't debilitate you forever, but it did take you, it is a initiation moment of being completely taken out of normal function. And that intrigues me. So that's the project I'm working on about Mnemosyne and the kingdom of Hypnos. I got to see a painting of her, which I loved. It was very effective on the like, ooh, get the juices flowing. And then I'm also growing some yellow pansies in the yard where I live, and those are a symbol of her, and as is the yew tree or the yew branch. So that's YEW, not yew, the yew tree. I'm very excited. I'm very, very excited about it. So it'll be some sort of project with like immersive audio, first level will be immersive audio, and then it'll be visuals, and then it'll be more immersive theater after that. So in stages, as the world kind of thaws out from its torpor of remembering the truth about the danger we constantly live in and the capitalism that wrecks our lives, and the just catatonic state that many of us have found ourselves in over this last year, over the seasons. Hopefully when we recover ourselves and we remember who we are, we'll pull ourselves literally back together, and these projects can move forward more. So stay tuned. But you didn't come here for that. You came here for Douglas Adams. What does the chat say? Bill had a difficult week, but is thankfully improving. I'm so glad to hear it. Nobody wants to stay in a difficult place. Sally says, same four walls for a year. Soon to be doing things, I hope. Ren Fair season soon. Yeah, absolutely. I've got a couple of fairs that I'm going to be pitching a character to that I hope to see you at some of them. We'll see. All right, darlings, it's time to hydrate. Hooray for adventure indeed. All right. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm wearing a giant emerald because I didn't know it, but emeralds are actually super cheap. They're super cheap. I thought like all of them were like, hella expensive, but apparently you can buy one at your local witch shop for $5, which I recommend. If you're in Richmond, you can go to Mama Luna or Rest in Pieces or Aquarian. 3 choices if you're local to Richmond. Johnny Twitch hoping for some nice people watching around the corner. Oh yes, goodness yes, the people watching is very real and very necessary. Right, I'm making a choice. I'm sorry for the clack clack, darlings, but I have to adjust the emerald. My necklaces. All right, here we are. Good to go. And this is a bit of a briefer show than usual because at midnight I go live with my midnight tea room, which is exclusive for patrons of mine. And if you're a patron, and you can become a patron in the next 45 minutes, and then you could be there, then every month I create a kind of restaurant at the end of the world, which is very apropos of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And we have some time together. We actually have a chat with a special guest of mine who's another maker or a friend. And in Crowdcast, it actually allows you to kind of come up and be seen or just hang out in the background. So it's not a Zoom meeting. But it's the first Monday of every month, which is today, which means it butts up right against GlamourHobo Bedtime Tales. So I would recommend that if you want to be a part of the GlamourHobo Nation, support the work that I do, and also find a connective and delightful space in the middle of the night, if you're in America, join my Patreon. And I'll ask my operator to run that Patreon banner along the bottom. Thank you very much, darling. Tea House on the Brink of Oblivion. Ooh, I like that. But it's the brink of oblivion, not actual oblivion, because I have a thing with oblivion. That's the whole thing with Naimosine and Lethe. It's memory versus oblivion. So the brink of it. You have to be snatched away from the brink's edge by drinking tea in the middle of the night and talking about weird stuff. Tonight's guest is Darlinda, just Darlinda, from New York City. She's a burlesque performer, performance artist. She does a big project called Urine Rainbow, which is wonderful and really, really cool. I support her on Patreon. She supports me. It's very nice. It harkens to the joke about artists kind of like sharing the same $10 bill back and forth. But this month is green. She wears green all month. And it's really funny. So I'm going to have to change out of blue and change into green. And I only have one green thing to wear. So feel free to send me something better to wear next time. And also Stephen Warwick, who will be in the chat as well, talking about being a flow arts performer and a graphic designer. So I'm excited. That's at midnight. So let's get reading now so that we can wrap it up, say goodnight here, and then I'll see you in my crowdcast. All right, darlings. Chapter 14. What had just happened was... What had happened was... Ford and Arthur were brought to the bridge by depressed but extremely capable robot Marvin. And they found that Zaphod Beeblebrox and Trisha McMillan, a physicist and mathematician, were there. And it turns out that Zaphod and Ford are related. And Trisha, was actually a girl who Arthur fell in love with very quickly one night. And they didn't get on, as he said. All right, chapter 14. Oh, quick shout out to Todd Gardner for sending me this bookmark that I now use in my show. If you want to send me something, you can throw it to the mailbag. Books, trash fiction, bookmarks, lingerie and sleepwear, large necklaces that I can put things on. I'm here for it. I'm absolutely here for it. And I will wear them on the show or read them on the show. All right, chapter 14. The Heart of Gold fled on silently through the night of space, now on conventional photo drive. Its crew of 4 were ill at ease knowing that they had been brought together not for their own volition or by simple coincidence, but by some curious perversion of physics, as if relationships between people were susceptible to the same laws that governed the relationships between atoms and molecules. If you can hear the pointed look through the internet, I am making it. It's quite loud. As the ship's artificial night closed in, they were each grateful to retire to separate cabins and try to rationalize their thoughts. Trillian couldn't sleep. She sat on a couch and stared at a small cage which contained her last and only links with Earth, 2 white mice that she had insisted Zaphod let her bring. She had expected never to see the planet again, but she was disturbed by her negative reaction to the news of the planet's destruction. It seemed remote and unreal, and she could find no thoughts to think about it. She watched the mice scurrying around the cage and running furiously in their little plastic treadwills till they occupied her whole attention. Suddenly, she shook herself and went back onto the bridge to watch over the tiny flashing lights and figures that charted the ship's progress through the void. She wished she knew what it was she was trying not to think about. Zaphod couldn't sleep. He also wished to know what it was that he wouldn't let himself think about. For as long as he could remember, he'd suffered from a vague, nagging feeling of being not all there. Some of the time, he was able to put his thought aside and not worry about it, but it had been reawakened by a sudden, inexplicable arrival of Ford Prefect and Arthur Dent. Somehow, it seemed to conform to a pattern that he couldn't see. Ford couldn't sleep. He was too excited about being back on the road again. 15 years of virtual imprisonment were over. Okay, Douglas Adams. Hold on. 15 years of virtual imprisonment? We are in virtual imprisonment. We've been inside of a virtual prison for a year. I'm feeling very called out by this language. And I would also like to get on the road again. This GlamourHobo needs somewhere to go. So there. Knocking about with Zaphod for a bit promised to be a lot of fun, though there seemed to be something faintly odd about his semi-cousin that he couldn't quite put his finger on. The fact that he had become president of the galaxy was frankly astonishing, as was the manner of his leaving the post. Was there a reason behind it? There would be no point in asking Zaphod. He never appeared to have a reason for anything he did at all. He had turned unfathomability into an art form. He attacked everything in life with a mixture of an extraordinary genius and naive incompetence, and it was often difficult to tell which was which. Arthur slept. He was terribly tired. There was a tap at Zaphod's door. It slid open. Zaphod? Yeah? Trillian stood outlined in the oval of light. I think we just found what you came looking for. Hey, yeah? Ford gave up the attempt to sleep. In the corner of his cabin was a small computer screen and keyboard. He sat at it for a while and tried to compose a new entry to the guide on the subject of Vogons, but couldn't think of anything vitriolic enough, so he gave up on that too, wrapped a robe around himself, and went for a walk to the bridge. As he entered, he was surprised to see two figures hunched excitedly over the instruments. See, the ship's about to move into orbit, Trillian was saying. There's a planet out there. It's the exact coordinates you predicted. Zaphod heard a noise and looked up. Ford! Hey, come and look at this. Ford went and had a look at it. It was a series of figures flickering over a screen. You recognize those galactic coordinates? Said Zaphod. No. I'll give you a clue. Computer! Hi, gang, enthused the computer. This is a real sociable, isn't it? Shut up. Show up the screens. Light on the bridge sank. Pinpoints of light played across the consoles and reflected in 4 pairs of eyes that stared up at external monitor screens. There was absolutely nothing on them. Recognize that? Whispered Zaphod. Ford frowned. No? What do you see? Nothing. Recognize it? What are you talking about? We're in the Horsehead Nebula. One whole vast dark cloud. And I was meant to recognize that from a blank screen. Inside a dark nebula is the only space in the galaxy you'd see a dark screen. Very good. Zaphod laughed. He was clearly very excited about something almost childishly so. Hey, this is really terrific. This is just far too much. Hey, what's so great about being stuck in a dust cloud? What would you reckon to find there? Urged Zaphod. Nothing? No stars? No planets? No. Computer! Shouted Zaphod. Rotate angle of vision through 180 degrees and don't talk about it. For a moment, it seemed that nothing was happening. Then a brightness glowed at the edge of the huge screen. A red star the size of a small plate crept across it, followed quickly by another one. A binary system. Then, a vast crescent sliced into the corner of the picture, a red glare shading away into a deep black and night side of a planet. I found it! Cried Zaphod, thumping the console. I found it! Ford stared in astonishment. Well, what is it? That, said Zaphod, is the most improbable planet that has ever existed. Ooh, interesting. Aw, thanks, Bill. Thanks for saying that. It is soothing. It can be soothing. Although it's about to get very exciting, I think. Chapter 15. Excerpt from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, page 634784, section 5A, entry Magrathea. Far back in the mists of ancient time, in the great and glorious days of the former galactic empire, life was wild, rich, and largely tax-free. Mighty starships plied their way between exotic suns, seeking adventure and reward amongst the farthest reaches of galactic space. In those days, spirits were brave, the stakes were high, men were real men, women were real women, and small furry creatures from Alpha Centauri were real small furry creatures from Alpha Centauri. And all dared to brave unknown terrors, to do mighty deeds, to boldly split infinitives that no man had split before, and thus was the empire forged. Many men, of course, became extremely rich, but this was perfectly natural and nothing to be ashamed of because no one was really poor, at least no one worth speaking of. And for all the richest and most successful merchants, life inevitably became rather dull and niggly, and they began to imagine that this was therefore the fault of the worlds they'd settled on. None of them was entirely satisfactory. Either the climate wasn't quite right in the later part of the afternoon, or the day was half an hour too long, or the sea was exactly the wrong shade of pink. And thus were created the conditions for a staggering new form of specialist industry, custom-made luxury planet building. The home of this industry was the planet Magrathea, where hyperspatial engineers sucked matter through white holes in space to form it into dream planets, gold planets, platinum planets, soft rubber planets with lots of earthquakes, all lovingly made to meet the exacting standards that the galaxy's richest men naturally came to expect. But so successful was this venture that Magrathea itself soon became the richest planet of all time, and the rest of the galaxy was reduced to abject poverty. And so the system broke down, the empire collapsed, and a long sullen silence settled over 1 billion hungry worlds, disturbed only by the pen-scratchings of scholars as they labored into the night over smug little treatises on the value of a planned political economy. Magrathea itself disappeared, and its memory soon passed into obscurity and legend. In these enlightened days, of course, no one believes a word of it. Chapter 16. How do you like my voice of the guide, by the way? Is it appropriately, like, friendly but still a little mechanical? Prison bars on my virtual prison. Oh, that's upsetting. All right. Chapter 16. We haven't gotten to the part yet where Arthur whines about not being able to get a nice cup of tea. So, with that in mind, I'm going to pour myself a nice cup of tea. Again, sorry for the clacking. All right. Chapter 16. Arthur awoke to the sound of argument and went to the bridge. Ford was waving his arms about. You're crazy, Zaphod, he was saying. Magrathea is a myth, a fairy story. It's what parents tell their kids about at night if they want them to grow up to become economists. And that's why what we are currently in orbit about, insisted Zaphod. Look, I can't help what you may personally be in orbit about, but this ship, computer, shouted Zaphon. Oh no. Hi there! This is Eddie, your shipboard computer, and I'm feeling just great, guys. And I know I'm just going to get a bundle of kicks out of any program you care to run through me. Arthur looked inquiringly at Trillian. She motioned him to come on in, but keep quiet. Computer, said Zaphod, tell us about our present trajectory. A real pleasure, feller, it burbled. We are currently in orbit at an altitude of 300 miles around the legendary planet of Magrathea. Proving nothing, said Ford. I wouldn't trust that computer to speak my weight. I can do that for you for sure, enthused the computer, punching out more ticker tape. I can even work out your personality problems to 10 decimal places if it will help. Trillian interrupted. Zaphod, she said, any minute now there will be swinging round to the daylight side of this planet. Whatever it turns out to be. Hey, what do you mean by that? The planet's where I predicted it would be, wasn't it? Yes, I know there's a planet there. I'm not arguing with anyone. I'm just that I wouldn't know Magrathea from any other lump of cold rock. Dawn's coming up if you want it. Okay. Let's at least give our eyes a good time. Computer? Hi there! What can I... Just shut up and give us a view of the planet again. A dark, featureless mass once more filled the screens, the planet rolling away beneath them. They watched for a moment in silence, but Zaphod was fidgety with excitement. "We are now traversing the night side," he said in a hushed voice. The planet rolled on. "The surface of the planet is now 300 miles beneath us," he continued. He was trying to restore a sense of occasion to what he felt should have been a giant moment. "Magrathea!" He was piqued by Ford's skeptical reaction. "Magrathea!" "In a few seconds," he continued, "we should see... there!" The moment carried itself. Even the most seasoned star tramp can't help but shiver at the spectacular drama of a sunrise seen from space. But a binary sunrise is one of the marvels of the galaxy. Out of the utter blackness stabbed a sudden point of blinding light. It crept up by slight degrees and spread sideways in a thin crescent blade, and within seconds 2 suns were visible, furnaces of light, searing the black edge of the horizon with white fire. Fierce shafts of color streaked through the thin atmosphere between them. "The fires of dawn!" breathed Zaphod. "The twin sons of Solianus and Ram!" Or whatever, Ford said quietly. "Solianus and Ram!" The suns blazed into the pitch of space, and a low, ghostly music floated through the bridge. Marvin was humming ironically because he hated humans so much. As Ford gazed at the spectacle of light before them, excitement burned inside of him, but only the excitement of seeing a strange new planet. It was enough for him to see it as it was. It faintly irritated him that Zaphod had to impose some ludicrous fantasy onto the scene to make it work for him. All this Magrathea nonsense just seemed juvenile. Isn't it enough to see that a garden is beautiful without having to believe that there are fairies at the bottom of it too? No. The answer is no, Douglas Adams as Ford Prefect. It is more magical. It is better to believe that the garden that you are looking at has fairies at the bottom of it. I stand by that. All this Magrathea business seemed totally incomprehensible to Arthur. He edged up to Trillian and asked her what was going on. "I only know what Zaphod's told me," she whispered. "Apparently Magrathea is some kind of legend from way back when no one seriously believes in it. A bit like Atlantis on Earth, except that the legends say the Magratheans used to manufacture planets." Arthur blinked at the screens and felt he was missing something important. Suddenly, he realized what it was. "Is there any tea on this spaceship?" Ahem. More of the planet was unfolding beneath them as the heart of gold streaked along its orbital path. The suns now stood high in the black sky, the pyrotechnics of dawn were over, and the surface of the planet appeared bleak and forbidding in the common light of day, gray, dusty, and only dimly contoured. It looked dead and cold as a crypt. From time to time, promising features would appear on the distant horizon, ravines, maybe mountains, maybe even cities, but as they approached, the lines would soften and blur into anonymity, and nothing would transpire. The planet's surface was blurred by time. Excuse me. By the slow movement of the thin, stagnant air that had crept across it for century upon century. Clearly, it was very, very old. "Hello, newcomers!" A moment of doubt came to Ford as he watched the gray landscape move beneath them. The immensity of time worried him, and he could feel it as a presence. He cleared his throat. "Well, even supposing it is." "It is," said Zaphod. "Which it isn't," replied Ford. "What do you want with it anyways? There's nothing there." "Not on the surface," said Zaphod. "All right, just supposing there is something. I take it you're not here for the sheer industrial archaeology of it all. What are you after?" One of Zaphod's heads looked away. The other one looked round to see what the first one was looking at, but it wasn't looking at anything very much. Well, I mean, it's partially the curiosity, partly a sense of adventure, but mostly I think it's the fame and the money. Ford glanced at him sharply. He got a very strong impression that Zaphod hadn't the faintest idea why he was there at all. You know, I don't like the look of this planet at all, said Trillian, shivering. Ah, take no notice. With half the wealth of the former galactic empire stored in it somewhere, it can afford to look frumpy. Bullshit, thought Ford. Even supposing this was home of some ancient civilization now gone to dust, even supposing a number of exceedingly unlikely things, there was no way that vast treasures of wealth were going to be stored there in any form that would still have meaning now. He shrugged. I think it's just a dead planet. The suspense is killing me, Arthur said testily. Stress and nervous tension are now serious social problems in parts of the galaxy, and it is in order that this situation should not be in any way exacerbated that the following facts will now be revealed in advance. The planet in question is, in fact, the legendary Magrathea. The deadly missile attack, shortly to be launched by an ancient automatic defense system, will result merely in the breakage of 3 coffee cups and a mouse cage, the bruising of someone's upper arm, and the untimely creation and sudden demise of a bowl of petunias and innocent sperm well. Oh my god! This is the part of the book that we're at! I am so excited! In order that some sense of mystery should still be preserved, no revelation will yet be made concerning whose upper arm sustains the bruise. The fact may safely be made the subject of suspense, since it is of no significance whatsoever. Oh, we're not there yet. Damn it. I hope we get to it before it gets too late. Ah, we only have 1 chapter. Okay. Chapter 17. I hope you're enjoying all of the effort I'm putting into the voices being distinct. After a fairly shaky start to the day, Arthur's mind was beginning to reassemble itself from the shell-shocked fragments of the previous day. He had found a nutrimatic machine, which had provided him with a plastic cup filled with a liquid that was almost, but not quite, entirely unlike tea. The way it functioned was very interesting. When the drink button was pressed, it made an instant but highly detailed examination of the subject's taste buds, a spectroscopic analysis of the subject's metabolism, and then sent tiny experimental signals down the neural pathways to the taste centers of the subject's brain to see what was likely to go down well. However, no one knew quite why it did this, because invariably delivered a cupful of liquid that was almost, but not quite, entirely unlike tea. The Nutrimatic was designed and manufactured by the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation, whose complaints department now covers all the major landmasses of the first 3 planets in the Sirius Tau star system. Arthur drank the liquid and found it reviving. He glanced up at the screens again and watched a few more 100 miles of barren grayness slide past. It suddenly occurred to him to ask a question that had been bothering him. Is it safe? Magrathea has been dead for 5 million years, said Zaphod. Of course it's safe. Even the ghosts will have settled down and raised families by now. At which point, a strange and inexplicable sound thrilled suddenly through the bridge. A noise as of a distant fanfare, a hollow, reedy, insubstantial sound. It preceded a voice that was equally hollow, reedy, and insubstantial. The voice said, "Greetings to you." Someone from the dead planet was talking to them. "Computer!" shouted Zaphod. "Hi there! What the photon is it?" "Oh, just 5 million-year-old tape that's been broadcast at us." "What? A recording?" "Shush," said Ford. "It's carrying on." The voice was old, courteous, almost charming, but was underscored with quite unmistakable menace. "This is a recorded announcement," it said, "as I'm afraid we're all out at the moment. The Commercial Council of Magrathea thanks you for your esteemed visit. A voice from ancient Magrathea, shouted Zaphod. Okay, okay. But regrets that the entire planet is temporarily closed for business. Thank you. If you would care to leave your name and address of a planet where you can be contacted, kindly speak when you hear the tone. A short buzz followed, then silence. They want to get rid of us, Trillian said nervously. What do we do? It's just a recording. We keep going. Got that, computer? I got it, said the computer and gave the ship an extra kick of speed. They waited. After a second or so came the fanfare again, and then the voice. We would like to assure you that as soon as our business is resumed, announcements will be made in all fashionable magazines and color supplements, when our clients will once again be able to select from all that's best in contemporary geography. The menace in the voice took on a sharper edge. Meanwhile, we thank our clients for their kind interest and would ask them to leave. Now. Arthur looked around the nervous faces of his companions. Well, I suppose we'd better be going then, hadn't we? Shh, said Zaphod. There's absolutely nothing to be worried about. Then why is everybody so tense? They're just interested, shouted Zaphod. Computer, start descent into the atmosphere and prepare for landing. This time the fanfare was quite perfunctory, the voice now distinctly cold. It is most gratifying, it said, that your enthusiasm for planet continues unabated, and so we would like to assure you that the guided missiles currently converging with your ship are part of a special service we extend to all our most enthusiastic clients, and the fully armed nuclear warheads are, of course, merely a courtesy detail. We look forward to your custom in future lives. Thank you. The voice snapped off. Oh, well, look. Will you get it into your heads? That's just a recorded message. It's millions of years old. It doesn't apply to us. Get it? What? Said Trillian quietly. About the missiles. Missiles? Don't make me laugh. Ford tapped Zaphod on the shoulder and pointed out the rear screen. Clear in the distance behind them, 2 silver darts were climbing through the atmosphere towards the ship. A quick change of magnifications brought them into clear focus. 2 massively real rockets thundering through the sky. The suddenness of it was shocking. I think they're going to have a very good time trying to apply it to us. Zaphod stared at them in astonishment. Hey, this is terrific! Someone down there is trying to kill us! Terrific. But don't you see what this means? Yes, we are going to die. Yes, but apart from that. Apart from that? It means we must be on to something. How soon can we get off of it? Second by second, the image of the missiles on the screen grew larger. They had swung round now on a direct homing course, so that all that could be seen of them now was the warheads, head on. As a matter of interest, said Trillian, what are we going to do about it? Just keep cool. Is that all? Shouted Arthur. No, we're going to take evasive action, said Zaphod with a sudden excess of panic. Computer, what evasive action can we take? None, I'm afraid, guys, said the computer. Or something, said Zaphod. Or, he said. There seems to be something jamming my guidance systems, explained the computer brightly. Impact minus 45 seconds. Please call me Eddie, if it will help you relax. Zaphod tried to run in several equally decisive directions simultaneously. Right, he said. We've got to get a manual control of the ship. Can you fly her? Said Ford pleasantly. No, can you? No. Trillian, can you? No. Fine, said Zaphod, relaxing. We'll do it together. I can't either, said Arthur, who felt it was time to begin to assert himself. I guess that, Zaphod said. Okay, computer, I want full manual control right now. You got it, said the computer. Several large desk panels slid open to the banks of the control consoles, showering the crew with bits of unexpanded polystyrene packaging and balls of rolled-up cellophane. These controls had never been used before. Zaphod stared at them wildly. Okay, Ford, he said. Full retro thrust and 10 degrees starboard, or something. Good luck, guys, chirped the computer. Impact minus 30 seconds. Ford leapt to the controls. Only a few of them made any immediate sense to him, so he pulled those. The ship shook and screamed as its guidance rockets, jets, tried to push it every which way simultaneously. He released half of them, and the ship spun around in a tight arc and headed back the way it had come, straight toward the oncoming missiles. Air cushions ballooned out of the walls. In an instant, everyone was thrown against them. For a few seconds, the inertial forces held them flattened and squirming for breath, unable to move. Zaphod struggled and pushed in maniac desperation, and finally managed a savage kick at a small lever that formed part of the guidance system. The lever snapped off. The ship twisted sharply and rocketed upward. The crew were hurled violently across the cabin. Ford's copy of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy smashed into another section of the control console, and the combined results to the guide started to explain to anyone who cared to listen about the best ways of smuggling Antarian parakeet glands out of the Antares. An Antarian parakeet gland stuck on a small stick is a revolting but much sought-after cocktail delicacy, and very large sums of money were often paid for them by very rich idiots who want to impress other very rich idiots. And the ship suddenly dropped out of the sky like a stone. Checking your comments briefly. Aw, thanks. All right, we're closing in on the end of this, and then we're going to close out the day. It was, of course, more or less at this moment that one of the crew sustained a nasty bruise on the upper arm. This should be emphasized because, as has already been revealed, they escape otherwise completely unharmed, and the deadly nuclear missiles do not eventually hit the ship. The safety of the crew is absolutely assured. Impact minus 20 seconds, guys, said the computer. Then turn the bloody engines back on, bawled Zaphod. Oh, sure thing, guys, said the computer. With a subtle roar, the engines cut back in. The ship smoothly flattened out its dive and headed back towards the missiles again. The computer started to sing. When you walk through the storm, it whined nasally, hold your head up high. Zaphod screamed at it to shut up, but his voice was lost in the din of what they quite naturally assumed was an approaching destruction. And don't be afraid of the dark, Eddie wailed. The ship, in flattening out, had in fact flattened out upside down, and lying on the ceiling as they were, it was now totally impossible for any of the crew to reach the guidance system. And at the end of the storm, crooned Eddie, the two missiles loomed massively on the screens as they thundered towards the ship, is a golden sky. But by extraordinary lucky chance, they had not fully corrected their flight paths to that of the erratically weaving ship, and they passed right underneath it. And the sweet silver song of the lark, revised impact time, 15 seconds, fellas. Walk on through the wind. The missiles banked round in a screeching arc and plunged back into pursuit. This is it, said Arthur, watching them. We are now quite definitely going to die, aren't we? I wish you'd stop saying that. Well, we are, aren't we? Yes! Walk on through the rain. A thought struck Arthur. He struggled to his feet. Why doesn't anybody turn on this improbability drive thing? He said. We could probably reach that. What are you saying, crazy? Said Zaphod. Without proper programming, anything could happen. Does it matter at this stage? Shouted Arthur. Through your dreams be tossed and blown. Arthur scrambled up onto one of the excitingly chunky pieces of molded contouring where the curve of the wall met the ceiling. Walk on, with hope in your heart. Does anyone know why Arthur can't turn on the improbability drive? Shouted Trillian. And you'll never walk alone. Impact -5 seconds. It's been great knowing you guys. God bless. You'll never walk alone. I said, yelled Trillian, does anyone know? The next thing that happened was a mind-mangling explosion of noise and light. And that is where we will leave it for this evening, my darlings, because I have another show to get to. It is always my privilege and my pleasure to be here with you in bed. Thank you for joining me. Remember, April 7th is the Saint Day for Saint Billy holiday. There you go, there you go. And if you've been nourished in the service, as Ruby Rod says, I encourage you to join the Patreon and join the GlamourHobo Nation. Tip well if you've been loving the evening so far and you don't want to get into a long-term relationship with me. I understand. And remember that we've got more shows throughout the week. And tonight, I close out the chapter of not participating fully fledged into the Tuesday night adventure with Nat 21. I've stopped just being an NPC. I've stopped being a cameo. And now I am the Metatron of the game. So that's right. I will be your host for the Tuesday night Nat 21 Adventures game for the next foreseeable future. I'm very excited to be there, and I'm excited to see all of you again. And good night, darlings. Sleep well and dream big. Oh yes, podcast. I have a podcast. It's called the GlamourHobo Field Notes. I would love you to subscribe to it. You can find it anywhere on all your streaming services. If you like the sound of my voice and the way I tell stories, I encourage you to listen to some original ones that I've written on my travels. Good night, everyone. It's time to end our broadcast.